Welcome to Screw the Commute, the entrepreneurial podcast dedicated to getting you out of the car and into the money. With your host, lifelong entrepreneur and multimillionaire, Tom Antion.
Hey everybody, it's Tom here with episode 264 of Screw the Commute podcast. I'm here with a repeat guest, and I only have repeat guests when they were great the first time. And there's no doubt about that. Ken Keis is here from the Consulting Resource Group. And this guy walks his talk. I mean, you know, I like to have people that have actually done what they're trying to teach you. Well, he's conducted more than 3,000 presentations and 10,000 hours of consulting and coaching. This guy has been there and done that. So can't wait to bring him on in a minute. And I hope you didn't miss episode 263, also a repeat guest. And I was on her show 13 times when she had her show. But she brought out some super secrets on Amazon Kindle that you don't want to miss if you're a self-published author or any kind of author on using the Amazon system to build your email list and to get your books out there that are going to lead to big money stuff. You know, nobody makes lots of money on books so much. But for our purposes, the book should lead to something else, and we go into that on that episode 263. All right, make sure you grab a copy of our automation ebook. It's at screwthecommute.com/automate free. It's at screwthecommute.com/automate free, and it covers all the little tips and tricks and little programs I use to handle up to 150,000 subscribers and 40,000 customers without pulling my hair out. So you definitely want to grab a copy of that. And then while you're at it, get a copy of our podcast app at screwthecommute.com/app. That's APP. You know, a lot of people get an app and you try to figure out how to use the darn thing. Well, we have complete video instructions and screen captures so you can use all these fancy features while you take us with you on the road. Now, our sponsor is the Internet Marketing Training Center of Virginia. It's a distance learning school, but guess what? After 11 years, we're opening up this summer, cross my fingers, for in-house classes, and that's because we're trying to get accepted by the GI Bill. And I'm putting a plea out there. The only thing holding me up is I need a veteran-friendly, doesn't have to be a veteran, but a veteran-friendly CPA that's willing to give us a really good deal on a full audit. And I'll tell them it's the easiest audit they ever did, but that's the only thing holding up our application to the GI Bill so we can help more veterans. And you know we're all about that. Anyway, the school's at imtcva.org. And a little later, I'll tell you about a quiz we did that's going to make you mad when you take this 2-minute quiz. All right, let's get to the main event. Ken Keis is a PhD. He's considered one of the foremost global authorities on personality and how assessment strategies not only increase, but multiply your success rate. He also co-created Consulting Resource Group's proprietary development models and written over, listen to this, 4 million words of content for 40 business training programs, 12 assessments, and over 500 articles. He's an expert on assisting individuals, families, teams, and organizations to realize their full potential and to live on purpose. Ken, are you ready to screw the commute?
I am ready to screw the commute.
Yeah, don't skew my commute. Yeah.
Skew it and screw it.
You'll run off the road if you skew your commute. So how you been, man? It's been a while.
I've been very well, thank you. And thanks for having me back for a second go. I always love hanging out with you, Tom. And
you deserve it, man.
Great job here on the podcast and training and, you know, supporting other people, and people need to be encouraged at this time.
Well, absolutely they do. And you were great on the other one. Like I said, I'm no BSer. I don't have people back that weren't great the first time. And it really helped a lot of people. We got a lot of great feedback on the things you helped them with. And you got a little something else to tell them about today, right?
Well, I just wanted, we talked about purpose in the last episode. And this time I just want to go a little bit more granular. In your introduction, you said I'm one of the number one experts on personality. Now, many people have heard of personality assessments, and we actually have our own. And I have my book, Why Aren't You More Like Me, which is just going into its 3rd edition in 5th printing.
Say the title of that again.
Why aren't you more like me? Discover the secrets of understanding yourself and others. So, there's lots of these quote unquote personality assessments out there. And when people get involved with our personal style indicator, we have about an 80% switch rate because we really want to be focusing on development. So every person
Wait a minute. What's a switch rate?
Well, if they've been using other
I see.
assessments,
Oh, they've been using other assessments and when
then they
switch to
come to
yours.
us.
I got it. Yeah.
And the reason for that is we honor people. Is it's something I do with you versus to you. I mean, there's some out there that are trying to be a test and box you in and pigeonhole you and all those kinds of things. And every single person listening to this show has a personality or a personal style, as we call it. The key is I need to know what it is so that I can make deliberate and intentional decisions in life. So it affects my relationships, it affects the nature of the work that I will work, it affects my leadership, my team interactions, all of these things, parenting. I mean, those of us that have more than a couple of kids, they're different in how I want to interact with them. Why don't I serve them? So it goes right back to the title, Why Aren't You More Like Me?
Okay, so this is self-discovery here so that you know how to interact with others. Is that a fair assessment or
That one plus what I would say, Consulting Resource Group, this is our 41st year as a company.
Wow.
I bought it. I've been connected to it since 1990. I bought it in just under 20 years ago from the founder, Dr. Anderson. So when we think about, yes, it's good to interact with others, but one of the things, Tom, when we look at the stats out there is, excuse me, 80 or 90% of people dislike what they do for mildly irritate the loathe. And since I've done our 3-day certification for 17 years and certified professionals from all around the world, I've really progressed to the fact that our tool is as much about self-validation is it about learning about others. So, we started to talk about self-awareness in the last show, and maybe we can go deeper here. That is really the meta skill for the 21st century. Do I know who I am? And there are a lot of times people really don't necessarily embrace. They said who they are. So, if I could just be like Ken or just be like Tom, I'd be okay. No. You need to be just like you. So when I was growing up, my dad, when I was a teenager, he says, "You know what? You talk too much. Why don't you shut up?" And here I get paid to speak all around the world, or do e-courses or whatever the case might be. And so I was not really honored. My self-worth in high school sucked because who I was not embraced. It was not acknowledged. It was not verified. And so I believe that the tool has moved into this place where it's around a validation. And so when I bring confidence to the table, then my ability to interact with others increases. And then part two is, yes, I need to understand how Tom is different than Ken. And what does Tom need from me? And then move from being self-centered. I'm not changing who I am, but I am moving away from being self-centered. It says, what does Tom need first? And then I don't feel threatened. I don't feel disabled. I'm positive in who I am, but I also want to honor, Tom, what is uniquely you need from me?
Now, how did you transition from that low self-worth? Because I did a lot of study on stage fright and performance anxiety when, in my speaking stuff and professional speaker training. And a lot of people that have it were told, just like you were, sit up and shut up. Kids should be, seen and not heard and things like that. So how did you make the transition? What we're talking about here, the tools that you're using?
Well, for sure. One of the things, we're an assessment company and I believe in assessment. So an example is, if you go to your banker and you're looking for a mortgage and you just say, listen, I'm not going to give you financial statements. Of course, they just laugh you out of the place. Or if you went to your doctor and they sit across the table from you, Tom, and says, I think your blood pressure is this, without putting the blood cuff on. So everywhere in life, we do assessments, we do a measurement. And so we believe that assessments is a benchmarking tool to help us to develop. So we have 12 assessments, not just personality, but we have a self-worth assessment or a confidence indicator, a values assessment, a leadership skills, learning styles, all these things, job fit. So all of these in pieces are pieces of the puzzle. So, your question around developing self-worth, first of all, I never had stage fright. So I knew even when I was 16 years of age that I enjoyed speaking. Even when I was a teenager, I was asked to be MC of many of the banquets and events that were happening in our community. However, my self-worth was low within communities with girls. I mean, I have not said this publicly for a long time, but in grade 12, I asked 20 people to the Beach Boys concert and I went alone.
Oh, wow.
So that was 20 girls. So they saw me coming and I just had this internal insecurity of personhood. I wasn't good enough. I actually tried to commit suicide when I was 19 years of age.
Geez.
So we have these things that are under tow because we're not validated for who we are. Now, get me in front of an audience of 5,000 people. I have zero hesitation, zero nerves, absolutely none whatsoever. However, if you were to, scroll back to my 20s and I'm going to ask somebody out to go on a date, then I'm just like this little mud puddle. So we actually believe in a concept, and we might as well go here, in what we call situational self-worth. And what we mean by that is that people's confidence levels are contextual to the event that they're in. So when I was 16 years of age, I grew up on a dairy farm. And so here I now I've been in this industry for 31 years. So that was quite a transition. But I was part of the 4-H program, which is a youth 4-H program. I was a national award winner, one of 5 people that won a trip to Europe when I was 18 years of age. Yet in high school, I was bullied, picked on, and never could get a date. So the environment that I was part of, I had this confidence in this agriculture community because I was with my peers and I excelled in that environment, and therefore my confidence was high. Take me out of that environment, my confidence is low.
Well, so somebody could say you're really good with cows.
Yes, yes, they could, and in fact, that would actually be a true statement. It might not be now, but it was once. Now, be really careful, Tom, what you say.
I know, because I wasn't going to say you took a cow to the prom because.
Well, that's right. As your stand-up comic days, you're messing with the audience there. Let's not go there. But I get it. So, or you slept with your cows or something.
Yeah, right.
Like that. So for me, that context, and everybody listening here, it's interesting how sometimes if you have a family of origin that's dysfunctional, which most of us do, then you get into that environment, all of a sudden you act differently. Well, why is that? I mean, are you really a different person? No, that self-worth has come into play. And I know even around my family, my wife says to me, Ken, you don't act like everybody else. I said, no, I don't. I'm fine. And so that defensiveness comes out. So that was really what I started to do, is to work on and be around people to develop my self-worth. I give credit to the National Speakers Association. In the 80s when I joined, they just really took me under their wings. I belonged to the Seattle chapter at that time. Was traveling down and commuting to go see them, and people were just very, very supportive. So I started to go on this journey, and as I got more success and started to feel better in who I was in my identity, and also I'm a spiritual person, so I just developed my faith as well. That all of that came together to really, put me in this position now where, all of us have to work on our self-worth or our confidence every day. But I'm in a position now where, I don't need other people's approval to feel okay. Yeah, we'd like it, but I don't need it. And so I appreciate one of my mentors, Alan Weiss, on that, where he said, if you were to run your life based on what everybody else says and does for your life, then pretty soon your life is somebody else's life and not yours. Mm-hmm. And that's where, having this independence, having this confidence, my ability to say no is equally important as my ability to say yes. And so that's why we believe that personality, or personal style in our case, in the book Wired to More Like Me, is so important. Is that, can I honor who I am? Now, everybody here has strengths and everybody here has stuff. I'll call it weaknesses, I guess. And so what is that? There's no style that's better than another. Sometimes people will judge and say, well, if this personality type is better, then no way. They are simply different. And so we really get people to embrace their personhood, acknowledge the strengths they bring, but also acknowledge the things that they don't bring. And what does that mean in terms of their choices, their life? If I have a job or a role, Tom, that I'm doing that's not a style or personality fit, then we know over time I cannot maintain my engagement. It's not sustainable. And so rather than maybe feeling guilty or beating myself up that I'm not applying myself, maybe I could recognize the fact that I'm doing something that I shouldn't be doing. I mean, that's what we were talking about, screwing the commute. Mm-hmm. is that a lot of times, I mean, the research is clear, 80 or 90% of people are doing something that they dislike. Well, they obviously are not owning their space to say no to jobs that don't fit. So this is just one tool of many. I mean, the purpose book is separate. You know, my purpose and what I'm called to do and my interests, gifts, and talents are separate measures. I really dislike, I'm quite opinionated about it. I know that you know that I'm not, Tom, but opinionated over the fact you should never link your personality or type or your personal style to a career. And the reason being, you link it to a job because interests, gifts, and talents are separate measures. So we have all different personality types in law enforcement, all different personality types in the medical profession, all different personality types in the speaking profession or professional development field that you and I are in. And so there should be no judgment on that. Now, how I go about doing it, how I interact with that space is unique to my personal style. And that's what we're trying to teach people, is to separate those things. So I hate it when somebody says, fill out this type and it says, oh, you're supposed to be an accountant. Well, first, screw you. Screw that
Yeah,
information.
right. Screw that
I believe that is 100% discriminatory. And if somebody is listening and you're still teaching that, you need to kind of get off of that and stop doing that to people. I remember an individual who was overseeing a $1 billion monetary fund that had no analytical or detailed part of his body in his personal style pattern. I said, how'd you do that? He said, well, I'm strategic. I'm visionary. I have the actuaries who work for me. I'm trying to work with all the different ideas of how we can strategize to optimize the response and the return to our money. And so, or our investments. And so that's where he came from, but he loved that space. So, I mean, anybody else would say in a career, if they were using in a personality assessment, so you shouldn't be that, but he was.
All right. So let's say somebody's listening to this and getting all fired up. They'd like to know about themselves more, and they want to make some changes. What do they do with you? What do they do?
Well, I'm going to give a free gift, but for this book, I do have a website called Why Aren't You More Like Me?
I love that.
.com.
I love that.
.com. And you can go there, you can order the book there. And interesting, the book actually comes with a complimentary personal style indicator. It normally sells for $45.
Oh, wow.
But I include it for free in the book. And the reason being is I want you to get into that assessment and to learn about it. We also have a full e-course online. And nowadays everybody is looking at the online world more closely.
That's for sure.
So we have a full e-course called Why Aren't You More Like Me .com on our site, where you can go through a whole 5-hour course that I teach about personality, personal style. What does it mean to you? And then we develop the whole person, things like biophysical factors, self-worth, values, culture. All of these things contribute to my personhood, Tom. And we don't want to include or exclude any of these. We just want to be totalitarian or holistic in our approach. And so that's what we're encouraging people, that you're not any single item, is that you are all of these things that contribute to your personhood.
Now, do people typically, once they get into this, go all the way through all 12 of your assessments, or do they not really need to do all of them?
They don't need to do all of them because some of them don't always apply to everybody. But I do have a core 4 or 5 that most people will go through at some level or another. So we have a wellness assessment. I have a diploma in nutrition and genetics, and I have co-authors that have run wellness centers. And so that's actually a longest, called the stress indicator and health planner. So if somebody's stressed in life, even though I might have the right personal style, I'll give you an example. I don't know if I told this story last time, but in 1988, I was diagnosed with manic depressive and put on antidepressants, lithium. So about 2 weeks into taking this drug, I was ready to kill people. And I said, something's not right. So a friend of mine out of Texas, Sharon, said to me, Ken, you're not depressed, as I understand it. And she's a psychologist. She says, I think you need to go do this physical test. So I went on my insistence to my doctor and got a glucose tolerance test and found out I was hypoglycemic, not manic depressive. And so once I've got my blood sugar levels in order, then my moodiness from being completely up and completely down changed. So for a lot of you listening, you're thinking your personality's changed. No, our health levels in North America really, and this podcast goes around the world, but our health levels in the developed world are not the greatest. And so those things are affected by that. And then we also have a values assessment, Tom. And all the research is clear about it. If I know what my values are, then I can make values-based decisions. There's too many decisions in life, too much confusion, too many choices. So what if I was to know what my core values are? Let's say it's challenge or tranquility or responsibility, whatever it is. I used it to filter my decisions. And then we do a play on words and say, what would it mean if you made the right decision every time in your life? So I reference the values preference indicator in my Wired to More Like Me book. It's so important. It's built out of our personal style indicator as a sort of a hidden design. And all the research is clear. My stress levels go down, my decision making goes up, my ability to even receive negative feedback improves, and my resiliency increases, all because I know what my core values are. So consternation or unknowns creates confusion in people. Clarity creates, power. Even our friend Brendan Bouchard, you wrote the book Habits of High Performers. The number one habit of high performers is clarity. So that's what the assessments are around benchmarking. And then what am I going to do about it? And then the self-worth assessment we talked about, and personal style. So those are four. And if somebody's in leadership, we have a leadership skills tool, if that's something you want to learn. Or if you're a student, we have a learning style tool. So you don't need to take all 12, but those are some of the ones that can link into developing yourself. I remember asking the question of Dick Bowles, who wrote the book, What Color's Your Parachute? He just passed away a couple of years ago at 92. And we were having dinner in California. And I asked him, I said, with all the possibilities out there and the podcast from Tom and the podcast from Ken, why do we still have 80% of people dislike what they're doing out there? And he said, immediately he responded, Tom, is that people have not been willing to do the work. If you don't know what your purpose is, then your purpose is to discover your purpose. If you don't know what your personal style is, you need to do it. When Talent Smart did a survey, and this is a subsidiary of Kenneth Blanchard training, is only 2% of the population will realize their potential without the knowledge of personal style or your personality. And he said, why is that? Because it affects everything. It's more important than your education, your background, because this consciousness, personal style, in our opinion, does not change throughout your lifetime. It is something you are inherently born with, these natural predispositions of how you interact with the world. So I need to know those, that you're biologically wired this way. And by having that knowledge, now I can make these intentional, deliberate decisions. I don't have to apologize for who I am. And then the other thing that happens with self-awareness, we want to move into another stage, which is called self-management and mastery. So Tom, if I know that I'm a jerk and I continue to be a jerk, that's really self-awareness.
Yeah.
So I know self-awareness, but I'm still a jerk. Self-management and self-mastery is that, I know I'm coming across as a jerk. How do I manage that? Because my credibility is based on what I do and what I don't do with all the people that I meet. And so that's your behavior in motion. Are you conscious and awake that your behavior having impact? Well, since we had our last show, I had Dr. Tasha Eurich on my show, which wrote the New York Times bestseller Insights last year. And she did some research, Tom, which was fascinating. She said, what percentage of people believe that they know themselves, so that your opinion of self is congruent and equal to what other people think about you? 95% of the population said that they knew themselves and how their wife, mother said that they knew themselves. Then Tasha took her students, she's in Colorado, and had people interview them around them. What percentage do you think, Tom, did the opinions of the people around them was congruent with what people thought about themselves?
Probably not very good.
10%.
Yeah.
10%.
Probably being
85% of
generous,
people are delusional, Tom. 85% of people don't even know that they don't know that they don't know. Now, this is not a judgment to everybody listening, but if you have not done the work, if you have not really invested in yourself to develop yourself, to be aware of yourself, how do you know that you don't know? And Tasha's research proved that. And her book, Insight, says that self-awareness is the meta skill for the 21st century. If I know what I'm good at, if I know what I like, if I know what my values are, then, oh man, it's so much easier. And that's really our work now. I mean, it's hard to even believe. Tom, you and I have been in this business for a bit. And not that long ago, a couple of months ago, I was at a conference and I had, a couple hundred people in the room doing a workshop. And as you said in the opening, I'd done 3,000 paid presentations over those years. I have never had more fun than doing that workshop just a couple of months ago. And it's interesting, after being in this industry for 31 years, is that is my passion. There's just nothing that jacks me more is to really to engage and to motivate and to serve the people in the room. And my speaking went to another level a few years ago. And I don't know exactly know how it occurred, but I could, looking back from a self-awareness point of view, is that it came to a point where I no longer was interested in impressing people on or no longer needed the validation from individuals, though that's nice. It was really more about how could I serve these people? How could I, at this very moment, help them to have a better life in whatever context it is? How can I bring the best of that? And it's interesting, Tom, and you've been in front of audiences and served people for many, many years, is that most people want to go there, but a lot of cultures, environments, significant others have not created an environment of growth for that person. So they've been stymied, they've been crushed, they've been hindered in some way or another. And I know when people get involved with the work that we're doing, those hindrances are removed. They are finally sort of opened up. And we said that the greatest person that you could be, those of you that are listening, is to be all that you can be in what you are called to do. First of all, I believe every person listening has a purpose. Every person listening has a personal style. Once you know those things, then you can be so intentional and so clear about your decisions in life it doesn't mean we're not going to screw up. We still will, but it's going to be so much easier and faster and more enjoyable for you.
All right. Well, all this stuff is very powerful. We got to take a quick sponsor break. And then when we come back, I want to go back to the part about you're a jerk and what to do about it. So we're going to have Ken expand on that when we get back. All right. So, folks, I told you're going to be mad. That's a self-awareness thing. I'm projecting that I know you're going to be mad. I don't know what that's called in psych language, but you're going to take a quiz. It only takes about 2 minutes. It's at imtcva.org. That's my school site /quiz. And it's the 7 ripoffs that colleges and universities, traditional ones, are doing to families contributing to the massive student debt. The MBAs are coming out and competing for jobs at Starbucks. So when you see these things, and I have this show in Hollywood in development and consumer advocacy called Scam Brigade, and I know what fraud is when I see it. And I think these college people would be in jail if they hadn't brainwashed the world how great they are for all these years. So take that quiz, and it could save you and save your kids and your nephews, nieces, neighbors, hundreds of thousands of dollars. People want real skills now. They don't want people that learned how to protest for 4 years. So check it out at imtcva.org/quiz. And then if I can help you and discuss one of the best legacy gifts you could give to your kids or grandchildren is internet marketing skills, because we're sitting here right now, Ken and I, in part because nobody's going anywhere. We're right in the middle of the coronavirus scare, and a lot of people are really suffering because they don't have these skills, where myself and Ken can run a worldwide operation right from our desktop. So check it out at imtcva.org/quiz and call me if I can help you. All right, let's get back to the main event. Ken Keis is with us here, and a tremendously powerful man that helped lots and lots of people with learning about themselves. So I want to go back to this part, Ken, about, all right, you're a jerk, but the what to do about it part. Just knowing you're a jerk doesn't mean you know why you're a jerk, right? Or do you?
Well, I think the answer could be yes, it could be no. So first of all, the statement is, for everybody listening, is that we use the concept of credibility as a window to knowing self. Every single person listening to this show, you have a level of credibility with everybody you know, if you know it or not, of high, medium, or low. The key is most of us don't know. Now, the other side, Tom, when you're talking about, is the sin of omission can be equally as important as what you do, is meaning what you don't do as much as what you do. Example, Brenda and I have now been married for 27 years. We were both 32 when we got married. Actually, she was 33, but she doesn't like me telling that, that she's older than me. So we had married, and we were in this townhouse, and we had an open carport that the kitchen window looked upon. And my wife's a teacher, so she was teaching English as a second language at the college, got home about 9 o'clock at night. We'd married for maybe about 3 months, Tom. I was sitting at the table just reading a paper or something. I don't recall exactly what it was. She gets out of her car and I just waved to her, and she's got her arm full of books. And then she comes through the front door and she's mad with me. And I said, well, why is that? And of course, before you guys hate, it's because I didn't get up and open the door for her or help her. And of course, I said, as a man, I was just kind of being ditzy. And I said, I'm in training now. I now get up and open the door. So no hate. So first of all, before I can do anything, I need to be conscious and awake that my behavior is constantly having impact of some sort or another. So if I know that my behavior is having a negative effect around people, then I can at least do something about it if I choose to. So as we said earlier, Tom, awareness is one. Number two is what are the choices I have to adjust myself? If I know that this behavior is offending my wife, then maybe I'll get up and I'll open the door next time and be able to be conscious. So first of all, I didn't even know. She was giving me too much credit that I was even conscious that I should know this, that I should be able to read her mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, I'm not going to pick on you, Tom, because you didn't do something. Tom didn't know that Tom was coming across this way. So we'll we'll show grace to that. And then from there, what is it that you need to do? So I had the privilege a couple of years ago to be in New York with Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, #1 executive coach in the world. And a lot of times in his coaching methodology called stakeholder feedback is I get feedback from people around you to say, how do you show up? And then what we actually get the leaders to do is we get them to go to everybody and we get them to apologize, not for their behavior, but that the behavior was offensive in some way or another. And then from there, they go and they start checking in and said, listen, what I'm going to start doing now, Tom, is I'm not going to interrupt you and I'm going to listen to your ideas to their completion before I interject my own ideas or my own thoughts or stop you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to check in with you every 2 weeks or once a month or whatever and say, Tom, how am I doing with this idea of not interrupting you and letting you finish your ideas and letting you have your ideas before I interject my own? And so now you're getting this live feedback about how you're doing. See, if I don't know that I'm doing it, if I'm not even conscious that's offensive to you, then I'm not going to act on it. So that's part of this constantly checking in, Tom, about how am I doing? And then here's the other side. People need to want to grow, right? There is a thing that Scott Peck had in his Road Less Traveled. I know you're familiar with the book, right? In the book, he says there is one condition that is nearly impossible to treat, and it's called character disorder. And character disorder is where you blame everybody else for your condition. And so if you're blaming everybody else, I'm not going to take responsibility for the fact that I contributed to what's going on here. So my encouragement to you is that everybody here listening, that some way or another, you have contributed to the condition. Even if it's 1%, what is your role? What is your responsibility? Because the only person you can be in charge of is yourself. You can't make anybody else do anything else, even though you think you can. And so my encouragement is that you own your own space, you own your own behaviors. And then if there's things that you're not doing that you should be doing, let's say you're a supervisor and you don't deal with people that are contrary to policy, then guess what? Your credibility is eroded with the entire team because you are not dealing with them. Or maybe it's to stop doing something like me interrupting you as a show host or something like that. So again, it's just this, you're going to make this commitment to work. And then the other side, and this is what you do, this is what I do, is most of us, at somewhere or another, have a coach, have an advisor, have a mentor, have a mastermind group, whatever it is that this is not a pathway that you want to do on your own. You want to get people to help. All professional athletes in some form or another have a coach. Well, why wouldn't we have that in life and business? And I've had many over the years. And in fact, when I got into this industry, I hired a coach in 1989, Tom, before coaching was big, to help me get clear about my purpose in life. And I spent 6 months dedicated to that process, journaling and working on that. That's even before computers. So just handwriting all the stuff that he asked me to do. So I would get clear that my purpose in life is to help others to live, lead, and work on purpose.
Yeah, because if you're trying to do it all by yourself, you're just guessing. You don't really know the effect it's having on other people.
Absolutely. And then, each of us develop our own expertise. I mean, I'm not a chemical engineer. I'm not an airplane mechanic. And in fact, if I was an airplane mechanic, many people would die, Tom. So it would be not a good idea.
Mhm.
But leadership, personal style, developing self-awareness, wellness, that is my space. Just like you, helping people to screw the commute, to be independent, to be internet marketing savvy. I mean, your expertise is all over that for many, many decades.
Yeah, and I call it like an insurance policy for times like right now. That's I've been preaching that since 1997. So tell them about the book, where they can get it, and how they can learn more.
So two things. First of all, free gift for everybody, Tom.
Okay.
So the free gift is I'm going to give you a full downloadable of my purpose book, which is
wow.
Ken Keis, KenKeis.com/Tom. I don't know where I got that URL from.
Wow.
But it's a special
insightful.
hidden URL for Tom's listeners. And then if you want to find out more about yourself, now this book is now coming into the 3rd edition and 5th printing, is called Why Aren't You More Like Me? Now, and you can go to whyaren'tyoumorelikeme.com. You can be able to get the book from that site. My encouragement to you is go there. Don't go to Amazon. We're just not doing an ebook with them right at this moment. So whyaren'tyoumorelikeme.com. And then we'll make sure the URL's in the show notes so that Tom has that as well. And then it comes with a free assessment. And if you have any questions, email me. I mean, one of the things I like about you, Tom, is that in spite of all your success in life, you are so responsive. When I email you, you get right back to me. And I'll try to do the best I can to get back to people personally through this process as well.
Well, everybody's sitting around their house now, so it should be easy now. and I, every time you say your book was in its 5th printing, I keep thinking about, I got a book that's in its 7th printing, only because I'm a self-publisher and the first 6 printings were blurry. So I had to start.
And you did 5 copies.
Yeah, I was aware that they were blurry, so I had to take steps. So, well, all that's great. Boy, this is powerful stuff for not only personally, but for business, So we didn't talk a lot about business today, but you can't be good in business if you're not good personally to start with, right? So
well, the number one reason, just to kind of close the show, the 2 top reasons that leaders fail: hubris and arrogance. Number 2, lack of interpersonal communication skills.
There you go.
That's what Why Aren't You More Like Me is all about, is improving that.
Well, we're going to help them with that, with your leadership to it. So thanks so much for coming back and enlightening us again. We're going to have you on 12 times to cover each one of the assessments.
Well, absolutely, Tom. And thanks for having me. I always love being with you, and I love your energy. And thanks for serving the community.
All right, everybody. So we will catch you all in the next episode. Get over there to the show notes and grab that freebie and grab a copy of the Why Aren't You More Like Me? I wondered about that. Why aren't you more like me? All right. Catch you all in the next episode. See you later.